This is 40K Today. 40K news so important, you'd travel through the eye of terror to get it. Or you could just download it here for free.
Hello and welcome to 40K Today. This is your daily shot of 40K adrenaline. We feature stories from all across the hobby, competitive play, conversions, painting, lore, you name it, we do it, full stop. I'm your host, John Damaris, and today on the program, recent major winner Dan Sammons stops by to tell us all about Salamanders and our faction focus. We want to know how to abuse them in 9th edition. But first, we get a big old dose of cute with some amazing chibi 40K art. All right, let's get into today's show. Our very own Tanya Gates sits down with Beaver Bennett to talk about his adorable 40K illustrations, his art style, and how it all came to be.
We're here today with Beaver, and he makes these amazing, cute illustrations, and I can't wait to get started talking to him. So thank you so much for being on the show, Beaver.
My pleasure.
So you're kind of known around the Instagram community for your cute Warhammer 40K and other sort of geeky themed illustrations. Have you always been into art, or is this something that you sort of picked up more recently?
No, I think I used to draw a lot as a kid. I loved things like the old Disney films, anything, especially like Little Mermaid, anything that's camp. And then I think as like anime became more popular when I was about 16, I started watching a lot of the girls' anime like Sailor Moon and Cardcaptors, and that's where my passion for then like drawing manga came in, I think. So
Yeah,
and it's just developed from there really.
I love it. How did you get started making avatars for content creators?
Oh, crikey. There was someone who asked me, because I draw for people just randomly, people that I knew from Instagram. And then someone asked me, would I draw them something specifically? And I said, okay. He said, how much do you charge? And I said, oh, I don't know. So I said, oh, just make a donation to a charity, and I'll do it. And then he shared it, and then other people started coming along saying, oh, you do commissions, can you do this? Can you do this? So it's just gone that way, really. I think it's just like word of mouth has just spread. So it's
I
quite odd.
know.
I was going to say it's quite odd looking at Instagram and seeing my pictures on the top row.
I know. And I think I actually saw miniature Reese's, and I was like, that is the most adorable thing I've ever seen. I need to have one of those. But now I have 3 of those. And I love them. So what is the process like when you're starting to design a new piece?
There's a lot of research. I don't understand a lot of 40K, especially. So I have to look at art. Usually, the models, especially, are usually just good just to get a basic grasp of armor and things. So there's more a little bit of research. How do they look? How are they posed? Like if they've got a gun, you don't want someone just hanging a gun down by their side because it's a bit dull. So
Yeah.
what sort of dynamic? I like to draw swords most of all because you can have them on shoulders and slung over backs and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of research really, I suppose, and then it's just getting in and getting something that I like. I go through quite a lot of different versions before the person sees like a rough draft. Because sometimes I can be drawing something and I think, oh, this is great, and then the next morning I wake up and think, it does something's not right, and so I have to scrap the whole thing and start again. So there's a lot that goes on in the background that before the person sees like the rough draft.
Yeah. And as somebody who has actually commissioned you to do a piece before, once you get that first draft, then there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of questions. Yeah. It's
trying to make sure.
like it's actually more of a collaborative effort once that
Yes,
first draft comes
definitely,
in.
definitely.
Yeah.
I much prefer people to say to me, I want X color, I want this, that, and the other, rather than saying, you've got creative freedom. And then, because normally the ones who say, oh, do what you please, come back and say, well, actually, now you've put it in that color, I really don't like it, and I want it in this.
Of course. That's so funny. Do you have any favorite pieces that you've created over the years?
Oh, crikey, now I put him on the spot.
I mean, you could take the diplomatic route and say, like, they're like all my children, and I can't pick
Of
a
course,
favorite.
of course, everyone. No, I don't. I do just enjoy each one. Everyone's
Yeah.
always got some different idea of what they'd like.
Yeah.
There's some I've disliked doing.
We won't mention those ones. All right. So one last question for you. You're also a fantastic miniature painter, and
Thank you.
I was wondering if there's any sort of similarities that you find between your drawing style and your painting style.
I'd say yes, because I'm a bit like a kid on sugar. I like the bright, vibrant color.
Yeah.
So I think so. Yeah, I definitely.
Yeah.
I love bright things. I like bright colors, and I've noticed that translates into painting as well.
Yeah.
Especially with orcs, I love doing them as bright as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I love your Maw Crusher that you did.
Thank you.
That's a great piece. Yeah.
Thank you.
But thanks so much for being on the show, Beaver. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I need to get an illustration done. That'd be way too cool to pass up. Next up, Salamanders have been taking 9th edition by storm. Let's see what makes them tick. Today's episode of 40K Today is brought to you by Frontline Gaming. Frontline Gaming is a one-stop shop for all your Warhammer hobby needs, discounted products, American-made gaming mats and terrain, and a full line of miniatures painting service and daily hobby content. And this can all be found at frontlinegaming.org. Welcome back. If you spend any time in the Midwest tournament scene, you know the name Dan Sammons. He does extremely well, and he does it with lots of different factions. He's often chasing the meta, looking for what's good. Well, recently he won one of the first majors of 9th edition with Salamanders. Let's see what he thinks makes them shine. All right, everyone, welcome back. And today we're going to talk with Dan Sammons, who recently won the first major in 9th edition, I think, or one of the first anyway, the Flying Monkey. And Dan won with Salamanders. So he's going to tell us in our faction folks today what's great about the Sallies. So Dan, take it away.
So just a few things about the Salamanders. Probably one of the best things about them is they have some of the best stratagems that Space Marines have access to. You have an on-demand +1 to wound. Their flamers can do mortal wounds. You can count as stationary for your heavy weapons. So when your grav devs come in, you can use that stratagem to count as stationary, get +1 to wound on them, and use the grav amp. So they just are the best grav devs that Space Marines have access to.
Count as stationary also works really good on aggressors. So.
Oh yes, so the next, they've got with the new strategic reserves, and if you do successors like I did and give them plus 3 inches of their range and have 11-inch flamers coming on from the side of the board with some aggressors, and being able to count as not moving and then double shooting them is incredibly strong, and it's a lot of fun because you get to roll a ton of dice and just auto hitting with +1 to wound for the super doctrine on turns 2 and turn 3 for all their flamer and melta weapons is turns their flamers into a kind of a universal tool for killing tanks or killing infantry.
Let's talk about that for a second. So you played something really unique. You played a 3-man flamer aggressor unit and a sergeant with a master crafted flamer, I guess. I don't know what it's like, a Boltstorm flamer or something. Not a Boltstorm, but a Flamestorm gauntlet or something. I don't remember. But why don't you go through the math on how much damage that thing does?
Yeah, so if it's 1 CP for a strat, and you can give a sergeant a master crafted weapon. I think the Salamander version is called Master Artisans, actually. So you pop that on your guy, your aggressor sergeant, bring him on from strategic reserves. Let's say there's a toughness 7 3-up save tank there. On average, so depending on, it really comes down to what you need, but if you want to do maximum efficiency, you can spend the CP to count as stationary, so you can shoot twice, and then you can spend 2 CP to maximize the shots. So that single guy will put out 24 strength 4 AP1 with +1 to wound 2 damage shots, which when you run the math on it is enough to one shot a vehicle that's T7 12 wounds with a 3-up save, and then the other 2 guys in his squad can shoot at another vehicle and do the same. So, and that unit is 120 points. So that guy for me over the weekend, somewhere in the vicinity, and not including his friends with him, but that single guy with help from some stratagems and stuff probably was responsible for killing about 1,500 points of my opponent's armies throughout the 6 games. So
Yeah, basically that 120 point unit. I mean, that's what it does to vehicles, and it just absolutely obliterates troops, right? So,
Yep.
it's just sort of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You just kill whatever you want, which is
Yep.
not a bad thing, especially for like such a small footprint 3-man unit. It's pretty cool.
Before the tournament, we were kind of wondering, is anyone going to show up with the hordes and go that way with the meta? But at least taking this type of Salamanders army, I just said, well, if somebody shows up with hordes, I have the answer, or if somebody shows up with vehicle spam, I've got that answer too. It's just the same thing. So
yeah, I think another fun part about Salamanders is because we talked about that Master Artisan reroll, and then they get the +1 to wound with Melta. They have the best Eradicators, which are already super efficient, right?
Yep, coming on and getting the shoot twice. So the way Master Artisans works, you get to shoot their first 3 shots and get a reroll hit and a reroll wound, and then you shoot again, and it's every time they shoot, you can trigger Master Artisan. So they shoot the second 3 shots and get a reroll hit and reroll wound. And yes, the +1 to wound. So I mean, there's most things I shot at weren't toughness 8. So against toughness 7 stuff, you hit on 3s with a reroll, and then you wound on 2s with a reroll at AP 5, I think, on turn 2 and turn 3. So it's extremely brutal and extremely effective at putting the damage on your opponents.
We like to say in the business that'll leave a mark, right?
Oh yes. So
especially if you're in Melta range, right? Rerolling those damage rolls. So
yeah, and it's actually, so the long range marksman being upset to a 13.5 inches, so it helps it a little bit, and does come into play occasionally where you're getting zoned out a little bit to be able to still get the Meltas in there.
Okay, so before I let you go, what tip would you give people for playing against Salamanders? Because I think we're going to see some of them out there.
So, defensively, Salamanders don't really have too much. They can be a little hard to kill against 1 damage weapons, but multi-damage or higher AP things, they are, for all intents and purposes, they are just normal Marines walking around without any special protection. So while they can hit like a freight train, they don't take a punch that well. So, this is if you have the ability to screen out, your flanks and keep their strategic reserves from getting into your juicy center or getting onto things they want to get on, it will go a long way. And then, as much as it pains me to say, there is the flamer aggressors can only threat 17 inches from the board edge. So if you're 17.1 inches away, just stand there and wave at them as they come on and do nothing. So there's ways to play, and it might slow you down, it might limit you from getting some early points, but do what you can to stop them from getting points, and it'll play out well for you in the long run, probably.
Yeah, it sounds like you need to play with blunting their beta strike in mind, and I think it'll help you in the game. Still going to be a tough matchup because they're very efficient and they are Space Marines, which are really good right now. So, yeah.
Agreed. So
all right, thanks.
That's no problem.
Yeah, I was going to say thanks very much. I think those are great tips, and I'm sure we'll see you at the top of the podium in several more tournaments this year.
Yep, sounds good.
Sounds like we're going to have to watch out for those Salamander Flamers for sure. All right, who's ready to get the song stuck in your head? It's time for Model of the Day.
It's the model of the day, the model of the day, the model of the day.
Today's model is an amazing group of sword and board custodians by the Emperor's New War Gear on Instagram. These guys are rocking a non-traditional color scheme that I absolutely love. They are steel and purple and look absolutely stunning. These models are completed with a nice contrasting sand-colored base with excellent use of foliage. You guys should check them out. If you have a model that you want us to feature on the show, or you've seen a model that should be featured on the show, let us know by using the hashtag 40KToday on Instagram, and we'll find it. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for joining us. A big thanks to our content producer, Alex Painter, our social media ace, Tanya Gates, and our technical producer, Seamus Ronan, for all their hard work once again in putting the program together. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, for Paul and Steve, I'm John Damaris, and that's what's happening in 40K Today.